Since President Obama took office, he made a lot of promises to voters. So how many of those promises were kept? Fox News contributor Karl Rove was senior advisor and deputy chief of staff to President George W. Bush. He has a clear and simple look at the record for us. Karl, transparency, accountability, bipartisanship. It's my understanding those are the three words on the whiteboard today.
Yeah, yes, they are, John. Look, there are lots of promises that he's broken last year about reining in spending, keeping unemployment down. They're all not taxing people making more than $250,000 a year. He broke all these things. He said he was going to oppose government-run health care because it was extreme. But what I wrote a column about today in the Wall Street Journal are three words: transparency, accountability, and bipartisanship. And these all have to do with things that we've just recently found out about. Two in particular: White House signing statements and the health care bill. And in both instances, the president has broken promises about how he would conduct himself in office, the process, not just policy issues like he did last year, but promises that he made to the American people about how he would conduct himself.
Signing statements are kind of an interesting quirk of the presidential, of the administrative branch. Can you explain how they work, what they are?
Well, since Andrew Jackson, presidents have issued signing statements when they've signed a bill that contain provisions which they consider to be unconstitutional and unenforceable. It's a matter of respect between two co-equal branches of government. The executive signs the bill but tells Congress, I believe these specific provisions are unconstitutional and an impingement upon executive power. And presidents literally, since Andrew Jackson, have done that. Senator Obama, as a candidate, attacked President Bush, saying that he had abused it because he used it to nullify provisions that Congress had passed into law. When he came into office, President Obama began doing signing statements, and last fall got criticism from Democrats. Congressman Barney Frank led an effort to send a letter to him saying that Democrats were, quote, chagrined that he was continuing to do signing statements. We found out this week that President Obama is no longer doing signing statements, but that doesn't mean that he is going to enforce every provision of every law that Congress passes. Instead, what he's doing is having, as every president does, have lawyers examine the provisions and decide if they're provisions that they consider to be a constitutional infringement on executive power, and he's not going to enforce those provisions. The difference is, unlike every president since Andrew Jackson, President Obama is not going to be either transparent or accountable, because he's not going to issue a statement to Congress saying, here are the provisions that I'm not going to enforce.
But, Karl, you know that every president makes promises on the campaign trail that eventually he doesn't keep. The first President Bush got hammered after saying, read my lips, no new taxes, and then he signed a bill to increase taxes.
Well, I think that's right. The question is then should we hold him accountable, and should the president acknowledge this? He was a reporter who'd written about this before, interviewed White House staffers who said, yeah, we're not going to issue signing statements, and yes, we're not going to enforce certain provisions, and that was the end of it. The question is the media going to step up and demand the same of this president as they did of other presidents, which is to say, treat the United States Congress with respect by telling them what provisions you're not going to enforce. We're also seeing this in the health care bill, where the president 8 times during the 2008 campaign promised that any negotiations over a final bill would be broadcast on C-SPAN. Now, maybe you can chalk that up to naivete, and I certainly do, but 8 times says this was not an ill-considered or hastily formed commitment on his part. Well, we know now that these negotiations on the health care bill are taking place in private, and we don't even know who all the people are in the room, because they're not going through a conference committee, which would give Republicans a seat at the table. It's Democrats only sitting down at the White House writing the final version of this bill, which violates 2 pledges of the president, that he was going to do things in a bipartisan manner. We were not red states, blue states, but United States, and that he was going to be transparent and accountable, neither of which he's doing by putting it in a private room rather than putting it on C-SPAN, as he promised us 8 times during the campaign.
Well, as you very well know, elections have consequences, and when the American people handed 60 Senate seats to the Democrats, essentially they said, you can run this place, right?
Well, but what that means is that he is entitled to say anything he wants to during a campaign and then turn around and do just the opposite later and owe the American people no explanation. Look, this is feeding into a bigger narrative which is going to be enormously damaging to this president, and that is that he is not the centrist that he claimed to be during the campaign, and he's not the new style Democrat, the new style political leader that he promised he would be. Instead, he's an old-fashioned politician who's going to use raw political muscle to ram through a bill whether we like it or not. There's a reason why they're trying to do this in secret, and then why they will try and rush this through the Congress, and that is because they know Increasingly, health care reform, like they're writing it, is increasingly unpopular with the American people. And for this and their broken promises, I suspect they'll pay a price at the polls next fall.
All right, Karl Rove, our Fox News contributor. Karl, thank you.